Hi, in this video, you're going to learn how to create an IELTS study plan that actually works. Now, let's be honest, so many learners make study plans, but they just don't stick to them. And yes, there are lots of reasons why that happens, but in most cases, it's not because people are lazy or unmotivated. It's often because the plan itself is not good. It wasn't carefully designed. It doesn't match the learner's goals, routine, or reality. So, in this session, we're going to take a slightly different approach. I want you to treat your IELTS preparation as a project. That means that we'll borrow some powerful tools from project management to help you organize your study time and make real progress. This video isn't about studying harder, it's about planning smarter. So let's get started. What you see on this slide is a pretty typical IELTS study plan, basically a calendar with some time blocks. For example, Monday from 4:30 to 6:30 is marked as IELTS study time, and again on Wednesday from 12:45 to 2:15. This kind of plan is a good starting point. It shows that you've thought about when you're going to study, and that's very important. But here's the problem. This kind of plan only tells you when you're going to study. It doesn't tell you what you're going to do during that time or how you're going to get it done. And that's why, for most learners, time based only study plans like this one just don't work. They don't give you enough structure to stay on track or measure progress. Still, this is where we begin. The first thing you need to decide is when you're free to study. So look at your week, your classes, your job, your obligations, and try to find at least 3 2-hour sessions per week where you can fully focus. And by free, I mean really, really free. No one calling you, no one needing anything from you, no interruptions. Most importantly, phone set on silent away from you. This step matters. It's the foundation we'll build on. So once you know when you're going to study, the next question is where. Now, this might sound a little funny at first, like, why do I need to think about where? But it's actually a really important step because choosing the right study location helps you minimize distractions and reduce friction. And when I say quiet, I mean really quiet. You want a space where no one is going to interrupt you. Let's say you've decided to stay in the office after hours to study. Sounds like a good idea, right? But if someone walks in to print something or ask a question, that's already a distraction. Even if they say just one sentence, your focus is gone. You've been derailed, and it will take time to get back into the flow. And here's something important: studying isn't playing. It's not entertainment. You're not casually reading or scrolling your phone. You're preparing for a serious exam, and that requires your full focused attention. So don't fool yourself into thinking that one small interruption is okay. It's not. If your phone rings, if someone walks in, even for a second, it breaks your concentration. And IELTS preparation doesn't tolerate divided focus. Trust me. Now, there's Another reason why deciding where in advance matters, it reduces decision making during your study time. If it's time for you to study and you are not sure where to go or where your materials are, that's friction. You start wasting mental energy on something you should have decided earlier. When it's time to study, you study. You don't waste time figuring things out. Also, one more thing, communicate this to people around you. If you're studying at home, your family needs to know. If you have kids, siblings, flatmates, whoever, tell them clearly, I'm studying now. Please do not disturb me. Same goes for the office. If you're staying late to study, let people know. Or even put a sign, do not enter. Make it clear that this time and space are protected. And ideally, don't change your study space too often. If you can always study in the same place, your brain will start to associate that spot with focus and learning. As soon as you sit down, your body knows, okay, this is study time. So, yes, decide where and protect that space. So far, you've blocked your time and you've chosen your study space. You've even made sure the people around you know not to interrupt you. Now comes the most important part, what you're going to do during each session. But before we dive into that, let's hit the pause button to talk about why planning matters so much. Because I know this might feel like a lot of effort just for planning. And yes, it does take time. You might spend good 2 hours planning 5 or 6 study sessions, and that's perfectly okay. That time is an investment. And here's why. When you plan your study sessions in advance, you free up your brain to actually study, not to search for materials, not to make decisions, not to wonder what to do next. You simply sit down and start. Our brains perform best when they know what's coming, when your mind is already primed for the task. You're more likely to enter a state of focus and flow. Planning removes what we call decision fatigue. When you feel mentally tired because you have to make too many choices. And if you're already tired from work or other responsibilities, your willpower will be low. And we humans have limited willpower. That's when even small problems like someone walking into your space or a notification on your phone can completely throw you off. You will say, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. And tomorrow turns into next week. And next week turns into next month. And we know how it goes. So the better you plan, the fewer excuses you have, and you're more likely to follow through. Let me give an example. It's time for you to study, and you can't find the one book you need. You know, all the other books are there, but that one you need is just not there. Your brain will use that as a perfect excuse to skip the session. Or maybe you sit down and someone says, oh, I just need 2 minutes with you. Next thing you know, you're solving somebody else's problems and another study session is gone. So this is why every study session must be planned and prepared before it starts. Your materials, your space, your task, everything. Because again, studying isn't entertainment, it's work. And it requires energy, focus, and discipline. If we want to give ourselves the best chance of success, we need to remove every bit of friction ahead of time. That's what good planning does. It makes studying possible even when your energy is low, your day has been long, or you're just not in the mood. All right, we've talked about when and where. Let's now focus on what you're actually going to do during each study session. Let's say your big goal is to get a band 7 in IELTS. That's a great goal, but it's also vague. It's too abstract, it's too far away. So, what do? We break it down. First, you split that big goal into the 4 IELTS sections modules: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And for each section of the exam, you now need to achieve a certain band. But that's not enough. You still can't really act on get band 7 in reading. It's still too rote. It still doesn't really mean anything. You need to break it down even further, all the way down until you get to a specific task that you can complete during a single study session. Things like write one task to essay, or practice matching headings, or learn 6 new academic words, or review the difference between present perfect simple and present perfect continuous. These small specific tasks are your mini goals. And every study session needs to have these mini goals clearly defined. Each mini goal moves you forward one task at a time, one step at a time. And when they're designed well, they don't just create progress, they create motivation. You start to feel momentum, you start to want more. Maybe this is a useful picture. Your big goal is like a wall, but you don't build a wall in one go. You lay one brick, and then another, and another, and another. Mini goals are those bricks. So break it down, break it down, break it down again, and keep breaking it down until each step is something you can do today. In the rest of this video, I'll show you how to design these mini goals so that they are clear, doable, and motivating, so that each session keeps you moving forward. Before we dive into how to actually design your mini goals, let's pause for a moment and talk about why this matters. Why are we spending so much time talking about goals? Because this isn't just a nice idea, it's backed by goal setting theory, a well studied concept in psychology. Goal setting theory tells us something very simple but very powerful. People perform better when they have clear, specific goals. Let me repeat this. People perform better when they have clear, specific goals. So, if you want to perform better, you need to have clear and specific goals. This has been tested across all kinds of situations. Two people doing the same task, one has a clearly defined goal and another one doesn't. The person with the goal consistently performs better. And we see this in our everyday lives. Think about your fitness tracker, your smartwatch. You get a notification, congratulations, you've hit your 6,000 steps a day. What happens? You feel good. You get that little dopamine hit, you're rewarded for your effort. When a goal is clearly defined and achievable, reaching it makes you feel motivated and even proud of yourself. That's why it's important to design your study goals carefully. Because if your goal is too big or unrealistic, it does the opposite. You feel overwhelmed, you feel like a failure, and eventually you give up. But when your goal is challenging but manageable, you rise to the occasion. You push forward. You feel that progress. And that's what keeps you going. So, all of this, breaking your big IELTS goal into mini goals and designing study sessions around them, isn't just a random idea, it's science. It's grounded in how the human brain works. If you're curious, you can look up Locke and Latham's work on goal setting theory. But for now, let me say it one more time. We perform better when we have clear and specific goals. Now that you understand why we're doing all of this, let's move on. To help us design strong, effective goals for our study sessions, we're going to use a set of guidelines, and these guidelines have been cleverly organized under the acronym SMARTER. This isn't some strict formula, it's simply a helpful way to remember what good goals usually have in common. When you follow these guidelines, you're more likely to set goals that actually work for you, goals that push you forward and keep you motivated. SMARTER stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, and finally, evaluated and reviewed. The last two, evaluated and reviewed, come from agile project management, and they are there to remind us that goals are not fixed. You can and should review your goals, come back to them, reflect on how things are going, and adjust as needed. So, again, SMARTER uh, is a set of good practices that help you turn vague, abstract ideas into something concrete, manageable, and motivating. Now, let's look at what each of these means and how you can apply them to your IELTS preparation. We start with the first and one of the most important guidelines: specific. A goal needs to be specific enough that it turns into something you can actually do. Not just a vague idea, but a clear, defined task. In fact, the goals you set for your study sessions should really become checklist. You should be able to look at your list and ask, did I do this? Yes or no? It needs to be that clear. Let me give you a few examples. If your goal is, I'm going to do some reading, that's not specific. It doesn't tell you what to read, how much, what the task is. A specific goal would be read passage 1 from test 14 and answer the 6 questions that follow. That's a complete task. You either did it or you didn't. No confusion. Or read the text titled Job Satisfaction and In-Depth Exploration and complete the follow-up vocabulary activity. Again, you know exactly what to do and when it's done. Another example, I'll study some vocabulary tomorrow. That's too vague. What does that even mean? A better goal would be learn 7 new personality adjectives from the text on page 73. Now it's clear. You're working with a real number, a real text, a real task. You can track it, you can complete it, and you can feel good about it. So remember, specific means you know exactly what you're going to do. You're not guessing, you're not improvising, you're following a plan. That's the first step to designing goals that actually work. The next two guidelines say that your goals need to be measurable and achievable. Let's start with measurable. This simply means, can you tick it off? Because if your goal is specific, it's usually measurable by default. For example, read the text on page 74 and answer 5 questions. That's clearly measurable. You either did it or you didn't. Simple as that. So, in most cases, if you've written your task clearly and specifically, measurement takes care of itself. Now, the second part, achievable, is something you really need to think about. Achievable means, can you actually do this within the time and energy you have? Don't overload yourself. Don't write up a superhuman to do list that sounds productive, but only ends up making you feel bad. Start with 2 to 3 focused tasks per study session. Keep it realistic, because if you set a goal that's too big, you probably skip it or start and give up. And that's demotivating. That's exactly the opposite of what we want. Also, when you are just starting, you won't always know what's achievable for you in, say, 2 hours. So you adjust. So in this context, achievable basically means realistic. Can you reasonably complete this task today, given your energy, your focus, and your environment? Here's an example: learn 20 new words. That's not achievable. Let's be honest, that's not going to happen. But learn 6 or 7 new personality adjectives from today's text. That's something you can do. And that's what we want: clear, measurable goals that you can actually finish, because that's what keeps motivation going. The next two guidelines are relevant and time bound. Let's start with relevant. When you're planning your study sessions, you want to make sure that every task you choose is actually helping you move closer to your IELTS goal. That means the content you work with should be directly connected to IELTS topics and IELTS assessment criteria. So, let's say your goal is to read an article on politics and learn 10 new words. That's a very nice academic aim, but it's not relevant to IELTS. You're not going to read about politics in the IELTS exam, and no one is going to ask you political questions. In fact, it's a forbidden topic in IELTS. So stick to themes that actually appear in the test, like education, environment, technology, society, culture, work, and so on. And when it comes to writing and speaking, make sure your mini goals target the criteria you'll be scored on. If you're working on writing task 2, for example, focus on building clear arguments, improving coherence, and using a wider range of vocabulary. Those are the things that really matter for your score. Now, let's talk about time bound. In the context of your IELTS study plan, time bound simply means that every goal or task should be designed to fit within a single study session. That session might be 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, doesn't matter. What matters is that your mini goal is something you can realistically start and finish during that block of time. Of course, some tasks may stretch over more than one session, and that's fine. But typically, each study session should have its own clear goal, and that goal should be fully achievable within that session. Now, this part is technically already handled when you block out your study time in the calendar, but I want to highlight something really important here. You need to actually block that time. You need to put it in your calendar a week or two in advance and treat it like an appointment. Because here's the truth: if you don't block your time, somebody else will. Let that sink in. Because if someone calls and says, let's have coffee on Wednesday at 4, and you've already scheduled a study session at that time, you can look at your calendar and say, sorry, I've got something already planned. And what you've planned is your own progress. That time is protected. That's your time to move forward. So, relevant means your task is connected to IELTS topics and exam criteria. Time bound means it fits within a study session, and that session is blocked, protected, and respected. And this brings us to the final smarter guideline: evaluated and reviewed. This part comes from Agile project management, and it's a reminder that your goals aren't set in stone. You don't just write them and forget about them. Good study goals are flexible. They need to be reviewed, reflected on, and when necessary, revised. After each study session or at the end of each study week, you'll start to notice patterns. What worked? What felt too ambitious? What was realistic? What kept you motivated? And that's where progress really begins, with reflection. So let's say you planned 4 study sessions in advance. After the first 2, you've probably already learned something about your energy levels, your focus, and how much you can actually do in one session. That means it's time to adapt. If something was too much, adjust it. If something was too easy, push a little further. Your study plan isn't a script, it's a system, and systems improve through reflection. So remember, set clear goals, but don't be afraid to change them as you go. Now that you understand how to design strong study goals, I have one more very important suggestion, one that can make or break your study session. Prepare everything in advance. You've already decided on your goals. You know the tasks you'll be working on for the next week or two. So before your session starts, make sure everything is ready. That means download or print the materials you need. Make sure your audio files are downloaded and ready to play. Check that your device is charged and that you have the app you need to play recordings. Gather your pen, notebook, dictionary, whatever tools you use. Prepare your coffee, tea, water, cookies, whatever makes you happy. Why does this matter? Because every little problem, every missing file, every technical issue, every distraction adds friction. And friction slows you down. And it can even stop you completely. On the other hand, momentum carries you. When things are smooth and ready to go, you build rhythm, you get into the flow, and that's where real progress happens. So ask yourself this question every time you prepare to study: how can I set myself up for success? How can I set myself up for success. Because if you don't plan ahead, you're setting yourself up for frustration or failure. And you don't want that. But if everything is ready and waiting, then the only thing left to do is sit down and study. So set yourself up for success every time. So, as you've seen, creating an IELTS study plan isn't just about writing down times in a calendar. It's about planning your time, your location, and most importantly, your goals. Each study session needs clear, specific tasks, a checklist that you can actually complete. When things are planned down to the level of a task, you reduce friction. And when you complete those small tasks, you build momentum. And that momentum is what carries you forward and keeps you going. And that's really the mindset shift I want you to take away. You don't just study, you design your study sessions. You set yourself up for success by planning carefully and creating the right environment. Now that you've built the foundation, it's time to take it one step further. In part two, I'll show you how to visualize your study plan using a simple but powerful tool called the Kanban board. This approach is backed by research in productivity and learning, and it's used in project management to make complex projects flow more smoothly. You'll learn how to map out your tasks visually, how to track your progress, and how to keep that feeling of momentum going strong. Will bring your goals to life right in front of you.